Good morning. I am delighted to welcome you all to this panel where our distinguished local and international guests will illustrate us on how to build a safe economy for investors. In the context of COVID-19 pandemic and the social and economic consequences it has left us with, how important is safe health, safe lifestyle, and a safe environment for business to attract foreign direct investment? This morning, we will examine how these conditions can be facilitated through the adoption and implementation of international best practices in cybersecurity and with the use of technology. We will hear from our banking sector on what measures are being implemented in Panama to achieve a safe climate for investors. And additionally, we will have the intervention of an international investor who will touch more deeply on the conditions that investors like himself particularly search for before they invest in a country like Panama. To start, I am delighted to be joined by Andrew Fitzmaurice, CEO of Templar Executives, who leads an expert management team delivering world-class cybersecurity consultancy services and solutions. Andrew specializes in government and commercial sector broad-level engagement and transformational change programs to enhance business performance. Also joining us this morning is Ms. Dana Al-Salem, a technology entrepreneur. She has been at the forefront of digital media since 1994 when she co-founded Clockwork, a Stockholm-based multimedia agency which built the first interactive platforms online. She is currently the founder and CEO of Fan Factory Limited, a consumer-led generation and fan intelligence agency, which in 2013 won the Technology 100 Insider Award as the top 100 technology companies in the United Kingdom. She also co-founded Yahoo Europe, built the production team, and implemented the rollout of 40 online services for the European local territories. She is also a grand jury member of the World Summit Awards. And I am also delighted to welcome two very special guests who will be joining us this morning. First, Mr. Juan Melillo, Deputy Director of National Bank of Panama, well-known economist with nearly 20 years of professional experience in local and international banking, capital markets development, and wealth management. He coordinates team leadership roles in the professional environment and in nonprofit organizations. And it is my very great pleasure and honor also to announce that we are going to be joined this morning by His Excellency Professor Sir Brian Patrick Luining, entrepreneur and board member with more than 20 years international experience in the field of applied technologies in various industries, including energy, food, farming, health, and defense. Director of the Economy Business Program of Al Khalifa Business School, and his clients for secure information and computing technology integration include Secret Services, National Police Forces, Ministries of Defense, and security services worldwide. We are very lucky indeed to have such a truly star-studded panel of experts and very good friends of ProPanama joining us this morning. So Fitz, if I may start with you, we know that the world is becoming smaller and we are more connected than ever. In this scenario, information is also now more important than ever. So securing that information, especially for countries like Panama that is quickly becoming a digital hub, is vital for our development. And in that context, how do you think the application of cybersecurity will produce the safe society Panama needs to attract investment and to have those investors coming to Panama? Can you give us any examples?
I certainly can. And Ambassador, thank you so much indeed for inviting not just myself, but the other panelists here today. We're very honored to be here and taking part in this discussion. I'd like to approach your question in sort of two ways, really. First and foremost, talk about at a country level, what sort of strategic implicators we're going to see and what we should see for a country that is ready to accept outward and inward investment from a cybersecurity point of view. And so I don't cause any embarrassment to any other country. I'm going to use the United Kingdom as an example of a country that has been on that journey and what lessons we learned along the way. And the second piece, I'm going to talk about COVID-19. It's absolutely impossible not to talk about this space, about mentioning COVID-19, but what we as all individuals can do to actually create the right economy and the right cultural and social positions to ensure that we can actually capitalize upon the environment still, despite the restrictions that COVID obviously places upon us. So in my work in the UK and working for the Oxford School and University, we have worked very hard and have created a process whereby we can actually evaluate countries at a government level. And through this process, we have actually evaluated around about 90 countries. And for us, there is a direct correlation between how well they score against 6 indicators as to how much outward investment they attract and how well their own economy is doing. And there's a direct correlation between that. So the better they score against those indicators, normally the more vibrant and more safe and secure their environment is. So the first indicator is about the global nature of cybersecurity, which Ambassador yourself just touched upon. We are all interconnected. And we all use the internet. And we have seen many examples over the years where a piece of malware intended for one victim has actually made victims of all of us. So it's an understanding of what that threat actually looks like. And that threat is made up of hostile nation states acting through advanced persistent threats. And in the UK at the moment, we know there are around about 140 misinformation campaigns active in this country at the moment, with a view to destabilizing our economy and our country through those types of activities. We also have serious organized crime. And experts, not just us, but other experts, estimate that by 2022, routinely up to $2 trillion will go missing from the economy through cybercrime. It's a really important thing to address. And lastly, because of COVID, we've seen a rise in hacktivism. Young people who buy themselves some tools and start actually doing hacking activities online. And this has been a profound increase, somewhere around about 3,000%. So once we can understand what the vulnerabilities and the hostile environment we are trying to do business in, we can then create a strategy, which is our second point, and an implementation plan to go with it. So in the UK in 2007, I was honored enough to be the author of the first strategy, and we called it the Information Assurance and Cybersecurity Strategy. But in those days, we really were concentrating just on computing power, and also the expertise we needed to create really good operators of that computing power. So it was quite a narrow focus. But towards the end of 2007, the UK government suffered a catastrophic loss of data. They lost 25 million records of people's children, families, and banking details. A complete catastrophe, especially as the general public started to lose real confidence in our government. And experts at the time said our government was 2 weeks away from collapsing because of the loss of confidence that we could not handle people's data properly. And coming out of that came a different approach, what we call an analytic approach. So we started looking at the role of people, the processes, and technology, and actually creating a better environment where such losses couldn't take place, trying to regain the trust of our citizens, that they would trust us with our data, and ultimately, of course, actually attract business from abroad and investment. We've had two further iterations of our cybersecurity strategy and implementation plan. And I think the most important element, two important elements come out. One, we have made it as business as usual for every single board and organization in the UK. They all look at cybersecurity as part of their planning. And secondly, government involved the private sector. This isn't something that government can solve by itself. It needs everybody in the country to pull together and to actually work together in partnership, public and private sector, to create the environment that is going to enable us to be able to attract outward investment and actually make a success. To do that, we also need to change society and get society and individuals to understand the power of cybersecurity and how to protect and look after their information. This was led by the government, and it went through a series of upskilling in education, both in schools at a young age, teaching people how to code, through to universities, running MSCs and doctorate courses. But actually, knowledge doesn't necessarily mean skills. And the other thing that we have invested in is apprentices, taking people from school at a young age and giving them apprenticeships in cybersecurity. Those people have got the knowledge of how to apply it effectively. Really, really important. Obviously, if we do have creating the society, we do need to have rules around it. So legal and regulation is really important. It needs to match what we're trying to achieve. So those people who transgress can be punished, that we do have regulation there, which is actually supporting the development of that society. And just as you have in Panama, the finance sector is heavily regulated. And it's a very good example where regulation can promote confidence around a particular sector. We in the UK have tried to put that into our health sector, into our utilities, in fact, all our critical national infrastructure. We've also adopted very strict rules around people's privacy, taking on the General Data Protection Regulation, which is a European-wide regulation. And we have also looked at networks. So we've taken on a law called Network Information Systems Regulation, which looks at the quality of the networks that we are actually utilizing to make sure they're fit for purpose as well, which again is really important. So allied with that, our fifth test is standards and technology. Has the government put in place standards for technology and for the use of that technology? And if they do that, you tend to raise the baseline of operations across the whole country. So to give you an example, our Ministry of Defence has around about 25,000 suppliers. And almost 4 years ago, the ministry turned around and said, if you wish to have a contract with us, you have to attain a certain standard around your technology called Cyber Essentials Plus. If not, your contract will not be renewed. And every government department has taken that same leaf out of the book. So working with their private sector colleagues, they've encouraged everybody to become Cyber Essentials Plus. This has also gone across our health service and various other critical national infrastructures as well. So we have confidence in operating that ecosystem, which again is very important. And lastly, we need to measure the success. So our National Audit Office has been very transparent in auditing how the money for these various initiatives has been spent, whether it's been deemed good value for money, and also where it could be better spent. And that has been very transparent to all UK citizens. Everybody can read this report. So as I said, if you look at these 6 indicators, if people are scoring high and countries are scoring high on the indicators, then actually that very often translates into a country that is doing very well and creating the right conditions to actually suck in external investment. Indeed, in our second strategy, we put as our goal for the strategy was the UK to become the place to do business. That became our strapline, and it's all done through the cybersecurity agenda. Again, very important. So that's how we do it. And I think Panama, I'll come back to it, is in a great position to adopt this and move this forward. But I will just talk about briefly COVID-19. COVID-19 has changed the world in the way we all operate and the way we work. And a colleague of mine from oil and gas has said, and I quote, "COVID-19 was the best digital officer we never had to pay for." And it's forced us all to get onto the digital agenda. We were all sent home. And if you have a look at this graph in front of you here, you see a lot of people have adopted very quickly the digital ways of working. But the bit they haven't done is absolutely managed to wrap around the security that cybersecurity provides to protect that digital agenda. And that is the bit that we need to be mindful of. That gap you see on the slide between digital agenda and cyber agenda is an attack surface to be exploited. So again, we can't forget the cybersecurity agenda. It's the envelope that gives that. And indeed, our own first couple of cabinet office meetings, heavily publicized, we're using Zoom, and perhaps without, and I don't know this for sure, that cybersecurity agenda protecting the information. So that's a type of thing we're talking about. So if you can cast your mind back to just 6 months ago, we were all working in a nice office environment. And that office environment had absolutely been designed for us to work there. We had in place all the security we needed, and all our policies were actually designed to work in that environment. Yes, we had a little bit of home working, but the majority of people in the office, where you had security on the doors, you had security for locked papers away, you had security for your printer, you couldn't print it out without putting in your own ID code. You had a way of working. You had IT support quite often in the same building as you to help you out if you couldn't get your laptop to work. And then all of a sudden, COVID hit, and we were sent out and we were sent home. And the home environment has caused us to struggle. And indeed, we have a capability to have a look and see what data is for sale. And we know that the number of passwords and usernames from Panamanian organizations, including the government, has risen 500 or so in the last month on the dark net. And a lot of it will be the fact is because we're having to work from home. And that's the same for every country. But again, we need to adapt. And on the slide in front, you can see all the distractions that I'm sure everybody listening to this webinar has been through, with children running through when you're trying to work, the dogs and the cats and the other animals, and trying to do homeschooling, the television on in the background. And of course, this doesn't make for a really good, secure environment to do the work. So each individual, there's lots they can do in terms of creating the right atmosphere for working at home to be as efficient. And organizations need to stretch their policies and processes out to the home environment to keep all that information secure. So in summary, against those 6 indicators, government needs to lead the way in Panama to create the conditions where people really want to invest through safety. And the cybersecurity agenda in the UK has been designed to produce safe healthcare, safe financial section, a safe place to live even. So Panama is the gateway to the Americas. It's got a very good reputation for financial services, and it's becoming a real hub. And I think if the government can concentrate on lifting up those indicators and us as individuals play a part, Panama can be a fantastic place to attract that investment that we would all like to see. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew, very much. Clearly, we can see that several aspects come out of your presentation, and the use of technology is certainly in the forefront of any development, any future development, and also accountability for the spending and the use of that technology in the right way for governments. And I think there are many international best practices that right now we can pull on from and learn from. And perhaps somebody like Dana, and I will go to you next, who has international experience as a technology entrepreneur herself and has been helping companies through her own business, all kinds of companies and all over the world to get their products to the market. what do you think, or how do you think that technology can support us by creating a safer Panama to attract investment?
Oh, thank you, Ambassador. Well, having been in the tech and innovation space for over 2 decades, I'm always keen to observe trends and movements in the industry. And I have never been more excited with the breadth and the diversity of projects being developed in both the public and the private sector. And it's been fueled by this crisis. And we see the world is changing, and so are consumer habits. And they're creating incredible solutions for citizens and businesses, as well as creating new investment opportunities. So as this change occurs, investors are also rethinking their investment strategies. So whilst Ernst & Young predicts that certain sectors will suffer a decline, such as tourism or aviation or real estate or luxury goods, there are opportunities for solid growth within sectors such as e-agro, e-learning, fintech, e-commerce, renewable energy, and cybersecurity. And so to attract these investors, government investment promotion agencies in turn need to modify their strategies to become creative and proactive. They need to rethink their value propositions and align with what investors are looking for today. And today, investors are looking for environments that promote, execute, and deliver upon safe health, safe business, and safe lifestyle. So the question is, how can technology help this? Well, the crisis has bolstered the digital industry worldwide. We're seeing that everywhere. And we're seeing more collaboration between the private and public sectors on new tech initiatives. Transparency, communication, and collaboration through proactive government channels are the first responses we've been seeing. So I have a couple of examples. Number one, free ideathons or hackathons to stimulate new digital projects and citizens' participation. The 3 winners of the last ProPanama ideathon were addressing the agriculture crisis and developed their projects in e-agro to tackle food preservation and supply chain challenges. Another example, instead of reissuing a severe lockdown, Dubai authorities launched Al Husn, a contact tracing app which monitors citizens' health with color coding systems that determine their individual status. And then a third example, in Estonia, they developed a chatbot using AI to respond to web queries such as healthcare support, transportation, and supply chain questions, all of this related to the crisis. So in conclusion, countries are really thinking ahead about how to reshape their future platforms in business, in health, and in lifestyle to attract investments and investors. And I believe that the winners are those who are focusing today on closing the information gaps for citizens, who are facilitating the transfer of workforce from one sector to another, and strengthening their investor relations services.
Thank you very much, Dana. I think that yes, the key is to have the right partnership with within the government and the private sector to facilitate, especially now that the name of the game is to create jobs worldwide, since we have been losing so many of them. And what are the new jobs going to look like, and what is the new economy going to look like, and what kinds of knowledge, competencies do our workforce need to have in order to insert itself into this new reality. And probably Juan, who is, by the way, the only Panamanian in this panel, having heard from our 2 international speakers, how do you think Panama is responding to these challenges or meeting the conditions for attracting new businesses? And what is the National Bank of Panama doing to use the cyber agenda and technology to promote confidence in our potential investors?
Thank you, Ambassador. It's great to be here. This is another great initiative from ProPanama, and I'm honored to be here, especially joined by such a great company with my fellow panelists. Thank you all for joining us today, too. Well, the promotion of foreign direct investment and the many strategic benefits from investing in Panama are of most importance for this administration. Among the many decisive factors needed to attract FDI are stable economic system. Historically, for Panama, it's historically been characterized by low inflation and a sound banking system, as Andrew mentioned earlier today. Um, as many of you know, or may probably know, Panama is a dollarized economy. And in the absence of a central bank, Banco Nacional, or National Bank of Panama, serves many of those functions. Some of these can be summarized as follows. Number one, we are the liaison with the United States Fed for all legal tender in Panama. We are the custodian of the government's deposits and all savings. And most recently, Banco Nacional serves and set up the trust in the roles of trustee and manager for the lender of last resort role for the Panamanian banking system. This was set up with an initial fund of $1 billion. Our banking system is widely recognized as an international money center and holds a regional advantage given its soundness and dynamic nature. This applies for Panama's services and logistics sectors, drawn mainly from our geographic and strategic position, the Panama Canal, and our many ports and airports grid. But what has been raising awareness most recently in the international community is the potential for our country to become a digital hub. The digital industry already accounts for about 3% of global GDP, 5%. Let me backtrack on that. I'm sorry. So it's 5% of global GDP and about 3% of all global labor. By leveraging from its strengths, as I previously exposed, Panama has the potential to become a center for digital innovation through foreign direct investments from companies in the areas of innovation and technology. The four components that have been identified by this administration are: number one, the setup for data centers; number two, innovation incubators; number three, the promotion of Panama as a hub for company headquarters. So as many as you may know, we have companies such as 3M, Procter & Gamble, Hewlett Packard, that have established their LATAM headquarters or regional headquarters here in Panama, Caterpillar, among others. And lastly, the setup of laboratories for tech research. The economic impact from this initiative is already being observed, and it's estimated to generate over 15,000 new jobs and 300 new company headquarters. Panama already has to offer a safe geographic position. We're mainly free from the hurricane hit areas. Also, it's a very stable seismic activity region. So in regards to natural disasters, God willing, we continue to be highly, particularly stable in that regard. Also, we benefit from the largest fiber optic grid in Latin America. We have many free trade zones located through our isthmus. And we're actively working in developing new data and privacy protection laws and new IT innovation and education centers. Lastly, in regards to Banco Nacional and given our position in the banking sector here in Panama and our overall business plan, because we also serve as a universal bank here in Panama, uh, cybersecurity and privacy are among our highest rated priorities. With all new current threats in the cyberspace, we recognize our duty to promote uh, stability in the sector. We have a strategic plan that is based on three pillars: confidentiality, integrity, and information accessibility. In addition to purchasing cybersecurity tools and training and our employees, the ability to strategically identify potential known and unknown threats and unexpected attacks by actively manage incidency plans and system reliance systems is our daily labor. Our purpose is to create a safer bank and the incursion in the digital channels arena in order to offer better and more simplified financial solutions to our clients. Lastly, and I think that as the only Panamanian in the panel, I mean, look at this picture in the background. I mean, I have to give it to ProPanama and the work that they have been doing. Also, I mean, it's a beautiful place to be here, and I highly recommend all of you, all of the international viewers, to come and visit us. Indeed, why not do business and then maybe early in the morning and in the afternoon go out for a stroll in some of our beautiful bay areas and facilities. So thank you, Ambassador. I'm glad to be here and open for any future questions.
Thank you so much, Juan, and thank you for all the props to Panama. Indeed, it's a wonderful country to live with, one of the best business climates in the region. And as a logistics hub and service center, a financial banking and service center, and now a digital hub, we are quickly positioning Panama amongst the countries to be in the recovery process from this pandemic. And in fact, some of the international organizations that have been studying the recoup period or time for countries have said that Panama is among the countries that will recover faster from others, even in the region. So yes, we also invite everybody to come and visit us here in Panama. And perhaps now that we have heard all of the technical experts on the different areas, it's time for Sir Brian to give us his point of view as an international investor on what international investment is actually looking for specifically. What conditions do you specifically look for in countries in terms of safety before you make the decision to invest? So, Sir Brian, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, for having me on this panel and to speak at this webinar. It's a great honor. And I was very happy to hear from Panama, because I've known Panama for quite some time. It is one of the longest standing hubs in the world. What some people try to forget is that Panama was around for quite a few decades already, and is not a new hub. This is very important to me as well, because, you know, there's culture there, culture to understand, relate to people, see what they're doing. There's a history there of being the hub for the Americas, also in financial sense. We all know what can happen due to a lot of things like pandemics, right? But also like all kinds of information that's spread around into the world, and that doesn't always relate to the facts. That's sad. To me, it's a great time for Panama. It's a great time for us all. It's not a time to be frightened by pandemics, and to recognize that there are outstanding chances for all of us, and to invest in accelerating technologies and countries such as your beautiful Panama. The thing for us is always to look for opportunity, and at the same time at skilled people. And not only that, but also to look at the government and what the government is doing. For us, it's very important that the government has a vision and carry out that vision. So to be verbal about it and what the intentions are, because then we can relate and trust on that government. It's also because what we need is in fact divided into principles and control mechanisms. It is to have a trustworthy contemporary business infrastructure, which can differ depending on the political design of the country and the political parties in place. But the important thing is that the basics of the country remain the same, so that we can trust upon the legal system to not change overnight, but to remain the same, and that we can attract, if we have lawyers, that these lawyers are the same lawyers tomorrow, and that we can build up a relationship, not only with the country, but also with other parties involved, and governments can do a huge thing to establish such a infrastructure. For me as an investor, and I guess for others as well, it's important that contracts and agreements and investments are safe, that they're protected and guarded throughout the time. So if we invest now, at least we know that when the fruit of these investments has to supply us with a certain kind of ROI, then at least, you know, we can bet on that to a certain extent. It's also very important to us that if we do an investment, that we can be on the steering wheel of that investment, so that we can talk to several parties if things go wrong, but also find a backup. And it's largely to do with how Panama would treat us as an investor. So I guess that, you know, investment is a long-term engagement. So relationships are very important. I don't think that any hub or any place in the world benefits from just money in and money out, right? The thing is that we want to create something that is long-lasting, which also supplies jobs, which also supplies knowledge. Therefore, I think that for Panama, it is very important to be an accommodating hub, like Juan said. You know, it's very important for us to have a really good backbone of connectivity, so that we can have companies there, because if we're the only company, it doesn't make sense, right? We need an ecosystem to be better, also to not have everyone in-house, but also to work together with other companies. So the other thing for us really important is that, like I already said, to have an unbiased judicial system. This is really important. We know that, you know, you cannot rule out a nepotism, or that friends and family are in favor, but at least when the rules are clear, then we know how to conduct, and that everybody has to play by the same rules. Technology, including cybersecurity, can play a major part in that, in safeguarding that trustworthy infrastructure, as I said, and my interest as an investor. Most of the trust violations today, and it's around the world, so it's not an America's problem, it's something from around the world. Most trust violations still happen from within, when even possibly enforced by external parties, but regardless if motivated by extortion, impersonation, or outright theft, right? Having the right monitoring control systems in place can predict threats and prevent them from happening. This is really important, and it's discouraging staff and criminals from trying to breach the system in the first place. That all said, I'm very pleased to see what Panama is doing, and I'm very confident for also the business school, Oak Khalifa Business School, where I'm part of, to see what we can do for the Americas and how to use that hub function. I think it's very important for everyone, if you want to establish a company somewhere, is to go over and meet people, talk to people, and get local, as I say it, right? the thing is that you cannot judge from a book, nor can you judge a country from the outside. It's never been that you visit 3 times and make a major decision. Yeah, if you want to invest a small amount of money, that can be sufficient. But if you really want to build up a company in an infrastructure, like I said, you know, it's very vital to meet people like yourself, Your Excellency, and to be well informed about the rules and regulations of that country, and at the same time the opportunities that are given, and to which extent they are applicable to the investor or to me as an investor.
Thank you very much, Sir Brian, and thank you to all the panelists for their excellent insights. I would now like to open the panel to the public and hear from you. If you have any questions or comments for our panelists, please do so at the questions and answers app that you will see on the lower screen, and we will read your questions to our panelists. So let's see the ones that we have already. Well, I can't read the questions myself. Okay, we have a question here. So Rosa asked us, what are the perspectives for digital assets, blockchain, and the regulatory frame? I don't know who wants to take this one. Just go ahead and open your mic, whoever wants to take this one, please.
Would you mind repeating the question, Ambassador?
Yes, the question is what are the perspectives for digital assets, blockchain, and the regulatory frame?
Well, this is really an important question. You know, as we move forward, all sectors and all industries are connecting now to, let's say, financial systems that integrate in every possible way. So I've been working for IBM on the Hyperledger, and the thing is that we put technology that was once for finance into all kinds of industries, or technology that once was developed, let's say for media, we put it to education. The thing is with blockchain as such for the agenda, I think that it is not about the agenda to promote blockchain. The thing is that underlying technology that says we build a trusted infrastructure where we can have a connection between the crypto world, so to speak, and the service delivery kind of work. That integration together with cybersecurity is really vital for the future, and also for Panama. I don't know if that really answers your question. The only thing what I know is that if we bring a company to Panama, it will definitely integrate blockchain, will definitely integrate anything that has to do with distributed ledgering or such like that.
Thank you, Sir Brian. And we have a more broad question, and it's how can we support opportunities for innovation in the fields of technology and cybersecurity? So I don't know if maybe Dana or Fitz would like to take this one. How can we support opportunities for innovation in the field of cybersecurity and technology?
Well, Ambassador, I'll start off, and I'm sure Dana will want to join in. But in terms of cybersecurity, as we've discussed, it's very much an enabler, and it's very much needed for institutions to identify what their cybersecurity outcome is and where they want to be and what level they're trying to get to. So the previous question was about a framework for use of blockchain. But you also need a framework for the use of cybersecurity to a certain extent. You need to understand the boundaries and what you're trying to achieve. And a number of the speakers have talked about setting a mission, setting a goal, setting something which you can work towards. So I think it's very important to understand where the government wishes to be in this space, and actually give itself a target which both the public and private sector can work together to achieve. I think there are plenty of opportunities in cybersecurity, and indeed I would really recommend that every organization looks at its own training and its own development of the individuals to ensure that everybody has a baseline understanding of cybersecurity. But there are very specialist paths that can then be taken. And again, obviously, universities and areas of education, academia and research can all contribute to people's knowledge and skills. And so I see it very much as having an educational agenda, but also to help, and a business agenda, but it has to meet whatever the government wishes to put in place. And so therefore, the government, I think, needs to be quite vocal about what it's expecting to see from its cyber security, what level of maturity it'd like to attain, and therefore what areas it really wishes to concentrate on in terms of investment into education, research and development, startups, to get it to that position.
Yes, I completely agree with you, Fitz. I think on the innovation side itself, it really is dependent on every government, what their strategies are. Every country has responded slightly differently to the crisis, depending on what their long-term objectives were, and therefore the kinds of innovative companies they wish to attract. They're not all the same. And then the underlying support system and infrastructure, cybersecurity being one of them, but you also have, incubators, accelerators, access to funding, access to support, and those types of institutions. I do think that I have been working with Panama for many, many months now, and I have seen a radical shift in the attitude towards technology and innovation, because I believe consumers' behavioral patterns have changed, and that they will not be going back in certain cases like e-commerce. So I do think that overall what I've been seeing globally is a very positive response to encouraging tech and innovation companies. It just depends on what the mission of the government is, and those are all different.
Thank you both. Now I have a question that maybe Juan and well, all of you can participate on, and it says, how would you measure the current level of business innovation in Panama?
Thank you, Ambassador. Well, indeed, I would say it's going to be hard to measure today, because it all depends on the variables to be used and the benchmarking. But what I can tell you is that, and what I can share is that, as soon as and this becomes evident throughout the globe, but as soon as you have a government leading the initiative, then you start developing and seeing more and more participants come in, and then an organic system being created around that. Also, Panama has, as it grows as a regional power player, it has also been participant of a lot of M&A activity and consolidation. So you have regional companies from neighboring countries that have been buying companies here in Panama. So what's been happening is that many of the fortunes and many of the wealth that was invested in land, property, or industrials that have been monetized, then you have the setup of family offices, for example. You have also, as an international financial center, you have banks from other countries and players also set up headquarters here. So you have a lot of flow of know-how and information. So, and in an environment of very low rates, because as Panama is a dollarized economy, there is very little arbitrage between our system and the Americas, United States, I'm sorry. So that because of low interest rates, then the search for yield opens up areas that were previously not as developed or in interest. So we are seeing more and more activity in small VC funds being developed and entrepreneurship in those areas. I think Dana looks like she has something to add too.
No, I don't have anything that I want to add specifically on Panama, but yes, I am seeing, as you were saying, I think what's happening with the crisis, there is consolidation happening also globally, and you are seeing, in certain areas where perhaps the tech or innovation sector was perhaps overlooked, perhaps not as mature. Now you're starting to actually see it become more structured. So, and the crisis really pushed a great realization of the importance of technology and platforms in technology and cybersecurity. So that is a real pleasure to see that happening.
I would like to hear from Sir Brian. What do you think about the environment here in Panama?
Well, I think that Panama is perfectly suited to be a real, let's say, fintech location in the Americas. That's why also referring to the question that I answered on digital assets, I think that it's inevitable, or maybe not inevitable, but I think that Panama should really focus on being that innovative tech hub also in fintech. And what you see now in a lot of things happening and moving in Panama is that it's exactly leaving the old onto the new and using this whole digital transformation that just made a huge leap forward to take that specific place. If we know now that, let's say, the United States is pretty much, also coping with the COVID state by state, and that we see that certain let's say movements also in California, which is the fourth largest economy, and also home to Silicon Valley, is now taking a beating pretty soon if not, if regulations would change, or if the positive climate for startup companies would change, then a hub like Panama would be excellent because of their markets and being in dollars and not so much different from that part of the finance market. So I really see a huge movement in Panama towards being this new economy, including digital assets, digital asset management, and everything which is connected to the old world of fiat currencies in combination with cryptos. The only thing is that where people ask for the legal framework and in let's say also the tax framework, this is a thing that is not unique for Panama. This is a global thing. Maybe Europe is taking their bigger steps than some, but if we look at the general markets in a macro situation, then we can conclude that everybody's looking for the right way to handle all of this and not to make a huge mistake on whole legislation part of handling digital assets and crypto. But as part of the entrepreneurship and the framework there, I think that Panama is doing great, and we'll see in the next 5 years, 3 to 5 years, I guess, that Panama will be on the map next to countries like or cities like Dubai and Singapore. So this is my perspective on Panama, and I think that everything is moving. I think that Juan can confirm that. Everybody's working hard. Also, you, Ambassador, everybody's working really hard to get a grip on this new situation and really make a leap forward also on that.
Yes, that's very true. And there is no specific recipe for success here because we are all in the same. This pandemic has leveled the playing field in terms of uncertainty. We are all doing trial by error here, trying to adapt quickly to the many changes that this pandemic have happened all over the world. And Dana was saying about consumers, but also the distribution lines, the value chains, everything has changed because of the pandemic. And perhaps we can find opportunities in those changes if we can identify them quickly and have the ability for our countries to adapt. So that leads me to the final question. And we have about 3 minutes to close the forum. But I wanted to ask you, are there any unspoken rules that you can share with us on being effective in attracting a technology FDI into a country? And I don't know who wants to start, but this is a question for all of you, for the four of you. Well, ladies first, I guess. So Dana, go ahead. Since nobody else spoke.
I was going to let Fitz speak first. Yeah, so I, as you know, am a huge fan of Panama. I love the country. And one of the reasons why I love the country is because, as you said, this crisis has created a level playing field, which is really interesting as well, because you see huge opportunities for existing tech companies in Latin America. Panama being, you know, obviously the hub for, or the gateway to the rest of Latin America. There are some really exciting things going on that are way undervalued compared to their equivalents in Europe. So what I love about this is that there are certain countries in the world, like Africa, like Latin America, where you actually spot some really amazing projects and really incredible tech projects that you've seen sort of progress and advance over the years in other countries. And because consumer behavioral patterns have changed over the crisis, you can almost predict where they're going to go. And so for investors, it's like an obvious win. So I'm really excited about that in Panama right now. So I've been introducing a lot of foreign investors to a lot of tech companies in Panama because I find what they're doing so interesting. That's my perspective. I think Fitz and Brian will probably have another one.
Yeah, so no, just very quickly, I totally agree with Donna. It's a fantastic opportunity. And we on this panel realize that it is. But lots of people don't. And I would say to you, to any country, to any organization, you need to handle your public relations. I think, you know, if you can get out there, what a fantastic place Panama is, and be very proactive around that, then you will attract investment. And, you know, you've got a lot to fly your flag for, but we don't see you flying your flag that much. So I think there's an element there about, you know, you have to let the rest of the world know, unless, of course, you don't want them to come, what a fantastic place Panama is. And from that way, you know, be very, very positive and proactive in how you market Panama and let people know what a great opportunity it is to actually come to Panama.
Well, if I can add to that, Fitz, then I would say that looking at young people and also in the startup community, and what they're looking for is not the old things that we all look for. What they want is let's say, an stimulating ecosystem, and that is not only in business. They don't want to sit in the office all day. They also want to go outside. They want to have fun. They want to enjoy themselves. A lot of what they do is discussed outside of the office, and especially now with COVID, it makes a lot of sense. But COVID will pass, and that is really important to have that in mind. COVID will pass, but things will change. So what they want to do is go out in nature. And what many people might not know who come from Europe or other places or other continents is that Panama is actually really a nature hub as well, right? Everybody looks at Costa Rica, but I had to learn more animals and more wildlife in Panama. So this is the thing, you know, and that also makes investing into Panama something amazing. Just explore it, and you will see that you find yourself mesmerized by the beauty of Panama.
Okay. Thank you, Sir Brian. Well, the easiness of doing business is key. So remember, in my presentation, I was talking about company headquarters, and I mentioned the Procter and Gamble's, the Caterpillars, big companies. But what I find really interesting, talking to smart people like Carmen and people from the executive, is that they have identified that it's not about luring big companies only. It's also about everything there is to do in the innovation and tech sector that it comes more from the entrepreneurship side, and it's smaller companies but with high potential. So the easier you can do to make those companies, and everything that the panel has mentioned is key. It's a very integral solution that has to be provided. So the easiness of doing business is to fly here or drive, but really fly, to set up shop, so to find real estate if needed, or if you're working from home, that's fine. Fiscal benefits, so technology and communications available, and lastly, financial services, because credit is always a big component of of business. So that's my 2 cents.
Yes, financial services that are safe. And one of the people in the audience has asked, who handles cyber attacks here in Panama? I know that each institution has their own cybersecurity sector, but perhaps you can elaborate very quickly on that to give a perspective of security here in Panama. Who handles this cyber attacks that may or may not happen in different companies or institutions?
Would that be me, Carmen?
Yes. Yes.
So indeed, it is part. I had the pleasure to visit the Central Command for the security department. So you would think that it's mainly security as far as policemen and other members of the public service, but it has a huge component of cybersecurity, and I was amazed. I felt like I was visiting the headquarters for one of these big banks in New York. They're aiming and they're talking to the right people. So also each institution, say for example Banco Nacional, we have our cybersecurity department, and it's one of our main concerns in today's world, because I think Sir Brian mentioned in a one-on-one we had earlier a few days ago about the growth of threats from the cyberspace and how much more relevant they are becoming in today's world.
Thank you. Well, we have unfortunately come to the end of the panel, and it was a very interesting panel with perspectives from experts in cybersecurity, entrepreneurship, banking, and foreign direct investment. And we appreciate your time and your knowledge and your experience and sharing with us all of this very interesting information. To the audience, thank you so much for joining us. We do hope the discussion has been helpful and that you enjoyed it as much as we did. And I think we're left with some very interesting conclusions, like the fact that investment in technology has to have a good follow-up to see accountability and where we are actually putting our dollars and what the results are from those investments. And for that, we should look at best practices from other countries that have been more successful, but also lessons learned from those countries that have tried to implement those strategies before us. Also, to promote partnerships, the correct partnerships between government and private sector are key for the development of any foreign direct investment strategy. And to make sure also that the labor force is adequately prepared to insert itself in the new reality and make use of these opportunities that can come from it. We have also learned that Panama is prepared and that the government has a plan to help promote the right infrastructure, the right business climate, and the right human resources to attract foreign. And also that investors are looking for clear rules for investment, transparent judicial system that applies to everybody equally, and the right conditions of business climate, including safe health, safe lifestyle, and good technology so that they can develop their businesses in any country. And we think that Panama most certainly have all of those conditions and more. And so we invite you to visit ProPanama through our social networks. And if you have any questions, Travis from our investment department has put his email out there in the chat. For all of you who want more information about specific sectors, please contact us. At ProPanama, we are always researching and learning innovative and better ways to attract foreign direct investment. So also, if you have an innovative idea that we can use, please feel free to share it with us, especially the kind of ideas that will promote investments that have knowledge and technology transfer and that generates jobs for Panamanians. So thank you, everyone, for this most excellent panel. We have recorded it and it will be posted in our YouTube channel and in our social networks for those of you who want to share it further. Thank you for being with us this morning, and we hope you enjoyed it. We certainly have fun. Thank you to my panelists, all friends of Panama and of ProPanama. And this will be the first of many, guys. So let's talk very soon. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.